I'm from Germany and was visiting New York. At a bar, an American asked where I'm from. When I said Germany, he nodded knowingly. He said, "Oh yeah, I know all about Germany. You guys still use the Deutschmark, right? I learned that in school back in the day." I told him we've been using the euro since 2002. He looked confused and said, "Really? That's weird. I thought only France used euros. You guys should have kept your own money instead. It's more authentic that way, you know?" He then lectured me about German currency policy. I'm French and was working at a café. An American tourist sat down and immediately started telling me about French culture like an expert. He said, "You know, I read that French people are rude because of the class system. It's still in your DNA from monarchy days." I asked him what he meant by that. He said, "Yeah, like you guys had kings and queens, so you still act superior today. It's a historical trauma thing. Americans don't have that because we invented democracy and equality first." I didn't know where to start correcting him. I'm Italian and studied art history in Rome. An American exchange student in my class insisted that the Renaissance started because of American influence. When the professor corrected him, he argued back. He said, "No, I'm pretty sure American traders brought new ideas to Italy in the 1400s. The professor, an actual Renaissance scholar, patiently explained that America wasn't discovered by Europeans until 1492. The student looked skeptical and said confidently today, "Well, maybe it was unofficial trade routes then. History is always being rewritten with new evidence." The entire class just sat there in silence. I'm from Sweden and was at a conference. An American colleague pulled me aside to chat. He said, "I've always wondered about you guys. Do you ever get tired of socialism? Like, doesn't it bother you that the government controls everything and you have no freedom there?" I explained that Sweden has a market economy with strong social programs, not actual socialism exactly. He shook his head and said, No. I've seen the documentaries. You guys are socialist. But hey, if it works for you, great. Americans just value freedom too much for that." I'm Spanish and was visiting California last year. A woman asked where I was from originally. When I said Spain, she got really excited. She said, "Oh my God, I love Spain. I went to Barcelona. That's the capital, right?" I told her the capital is actually Madrid. She looked surprised and said, "Really? That's confusing. Barcelona is so much bigger and more important. They should probably make it the capital instead. It would make more sense for tourists, honestly." She then asked if we still do bullfighting. I said it's controversial and banned in some regions. She replied, "That's so sad. You're losing your culture. Bullfighting is what makes Spain special today. Without it, you're just another European country, really." I tried to explain that Spain has centuries of culture beyond bullfighting, but she wasn't listening. She was already planning her next Barcelona trip. I'm from Ireland and was working in Boston. A coworker found out I'm Irish and said, "That's so cool. I'm Irish too, actually." I asked where in Ireland his family was from. He said, "Oh, I've never been there personally. But my great-great-grandfather came from Ireland once." He then started telling me about Irish history. He said, "You guys were basically starving until America sent food during the potato famine, right? We saved Ireland. You'd all be dead without us helping out back then." I explained that millions died and millions emigrated during the famine. American aid wasn't what ended the famine at all. He looked offended and said, "Well, I read that Americans sent ships full of supplies there. That's what my family always told me growing up. Are you sure you know your own history?" I'm literally from Ireland. I studied this history. I'm Greek and was at a university seminar. An American student raised his hand and said, "I don't get why Greece is so poor. You guys invented democracy. What happened to you? The professor tried to explain complex economic history. The student interrupted and said, But like seriously. If you invented democracy, why didn't you keep the advantage? Americans took your idea and perfected it. Maybe you guys should study our system and copy what we did right. Several Greek students in the room just stared at him. One muttered something in Greek under her breath. I'm from the Netherlands and was visiting Texas. Someone asked where I'm from and I said Holland. He said, Oh cool. Do you live in a windmill? I've always wanted to see those. I explained that windmills are historical landmarks now. People don't actually live in them anymore today. He looked disappointed and said, That's too bad really. You guys are losing your heritage and traditions. In America, we preserve our history way better. You should turn them into museums or something. I told him many windmills are museums already. He said, See? You should have thought of that. I'm from Poland and was working in Chicago. An American coworker asked about my background today. When I said Poland, he said, Oh man. That's rough. Do you guys have electricity yet? I heard Eastern Europe is pretty behind still. I stared at him, completely shocked and speechless. I told him Poland has been a developed democracy since 1989, with modern cities and technology. He said, Yeah, but like, compared to America? It's probably still pretty rough over there, right? I showed him photos of Warsaw on my phone. He said, Wow, that looks just like America. I'm British and was at a college party. An American student asked about my accent curiously. I said I'm from England, near London area. He said, That's awesome. Do you know the Queen personally? I said no, obviously not personally. He looked confused and asked, Why not though? Isn't England really small? I figured you'd run into her at the grocery store or something. I explained that England has over 56 million people. He said, Really? That seems like too many people for such a tiny island, honestly. He then asked if I lived in a castle. I'm from Belgium and was visiting Washington, D.C. A tour guide pointed at the EU flag. He said to his group, That's the flag of Europe. They're trying to become one country, like the United States, but it's not working. I corrected him, saying the EU isn't becoming one country at all. He said, Well, that's what they want eventually. But Europeans are too divided by old grudges. Americans figured out unity. Europeans never will, honestly. I tried to explain how the EU actually works. He smiled and said, I've been studying this for years. I think I know it. I'm from Portugal and was studying in Miami. A classmate asked where I'm from originally today. When I said Portugal, she said, Oh, you speak Portuguese. That's like Spanish, right? Just different pronunciation? I said they're related but different languages. She said, But you can understand Spanish people? I said sometimes, but not always perfectly honestly. She said, That's so inefficient. You guys should just pick one language for the whole region. It would make everything easier for everyone involved. I asked if Americans and Canadians should speak one language then. She said, We already do. I'm from Austria and was working in Seattle. Someone asked where I'm from and I said Austria. They got excited and said, Oh, I love Australia. The accents are so cool down there. I said Austria, not Australia. Different continents entirely. They laughed and said, Oh right, same thing. I said no, Austria is in Europe actually. They said, Yeah, but isn't it like a territory of Australia or something? I always get confused. I explained Austria is a landlocked European country. They said, Weird. They should really change the name. It's too confusing for people, honestly. I'm from Denmark and was at a conference. An American asked about my country's healthcare system. Before I could answer, he said, I heard. You guys have free healthcare, but the wait times are like 5 years for everything, right? I said no, that's completely false and exaggerated. He said, come on, be honest. I read articles about people dying while waiting for doctors. It's because socialism doesn't work in healthcare ever. I explained our system works well with short waits. He said, you're probably just used to it. If you lived in America, you'd see. I'm from Switzerland and was visiting New York. Someone asked if Switzerland is part of Scandinavia. I said no, Switzerland is in Central Europe. They said, but you guys have mountains and skiing, so isn't that basically the same thing? I explained geography doesn't work that way at all. They said, well, all those small European countries are basically the same anyway. You guys should merge. It would be easier for Americans to remember. I asked if they'd merge all American states. They said, that's different. We have real diversity. I just walked away from that conversation. I'm from Norway and was working in Boston. A colleague said, you're from Norway? Isn't that where Vikings are from? Do you guys still do the Viking stuff? I said Vikings were 1,000 years ago. He looked disappointed and said, man, that's a shame you lost that. You should bring it back. It would be great for tourism and national pride, you know? I explained we have a modern society now. He said, yeah, but you could do both. Americans keep our cowboy culture alive and well. I didn't have the heart to continue this. I'm from Finland and was at a conference. An American said, Finland? That's next to Russia. Right? Do you guys speak Russian over there? I said we speak Finnish and Swedish officially. He said, but doesn't Russia control you guys? I thought Finland was part of the Soviet Union. I explained Finland has been independent since 1917. He said, yeah, but Russia basically runs things. They're right? They're so close. I said no. Finland is an independent democracy and EU member. He said, if you say so. Just be careful. Russia is always looking to expand territory. I'm from Czech Republic, was visiting Los Angeles. Someone asked where I'm from and I explained. They said, oh, Czechoslovakia. Do you guys still have communism? I said Czechoslovakia split in 1993. Czech Republic has been democratic for decades now. They said, but you were communist recently, right? I said communism ended in 1989, over 30 years ago now. They said, that's pretty recent. In historical terms, you guys probably still have the communist mindset. I tried to explain modern Czech society. They said, it must be hard adjusting to freedom after all those years though. I'm from Scotland and was working in Houston. Someone said, Scotland? That's in England, right? I said no, Scotland is its own country. They said, but isn't it part of England? I explained the UK includes separate countries together. They said, that's so confusing. You should simplify. Just call it all England. That's what Americans do anyway. I said Scotland has its own culture, history, and identity separate from England completely. They said, yeah, but to outsiders it's all the same. You guys need better branding, honestly. I gave up trying to explain at this point. I'm Romanian and was studying in California recently. A classmate said, Romania! That's where Dracula's from. Do you guys still have a lot of vampires? I said Dracula is fictional, based loosely on history. They said, but isn't vampire hunting still a thing there? I saw it online. I explained Romania is a normal modern country. They looked disappointed and said, that's too bad. You should lean into the vampire thing more. It would really help your tourism industry grow. I said we have rich history beyond Dracula. They said. Yeah, but vampires are what you're known for. I'm from Hungary and was at a party. Someone said. Hungary! Are you guys still hungry? Get it? I forced a smile at the joke. They said. But seriously, isn't Hungary in the Balkans? I said Hungary is in Central Europe. They said. Same thing. It's all Eastern Europe. I tried to explain the geographical distinctions clearly. They said. You Europeans are so picky about borders. In America, we don't worry about that. We're all just American. I said Europe has distinct cultures and histories. They said you should try being more united like us Americans are. I'm from Malta and was working in Miami. Someone asked where I'm from and I explained. They said, Malta? Is that in Africa somewhere? I said Malta is an island in the Mediterranean, part of the European Union officially today. They said, Oh, so it's near Italy then? I said yes, south of Sicily in the Mediterranean. They said, Cool. So do you speak Italian? I said we speak Maltese and English officially. They said, You should just speak Italian. It would make things easier for tourists visiting there. I explained Malta has its own language and culture. I'm from Slovenia and was visiting New York. Someone said, Slovenia? Where's that exactly located at? I said it's between Italy and Austria mainly. They said, Oh, so it's basically just part of Italy? I said no, Slovenia is independent. They said, But wouldn't it be easier to merge? All these tiny European countries should just become bigger ones. It's too complicated for the world. I said Slovenia has 2 million people with unique identity. They said, Yeah, but America has states bigger than that. You'd be like Delaware. I couldn't even respond to that comparison at all. I'm from Croatia and was at a conference. An American said, Croatia! You guys just got independence, right? I said Croatia has been independent since 1991. They said, Yeah, that's pretty recent. You're still figuring things out probably, huh? I said we've been democratic for over 30 years. They said, But you're still developing, right? Like, do you have highways and internet over there? I said yes, Croatia is a developed country. They said, That's impressive for such a new nation. You guys are learning fast from us. I just nodded and walked away from this conversation. I'm from Estonia and was working in Seattle. A colleague said, Estonia? Is that one of those countries that Russia took over recently again? I said Estonia has been independent and democratic since 1991. They said, Yeah, but doesn't Russia still control you guys through puppet governments there? I explained Estonia is an EU and NATO member. They said, Sure, but Russia is right there. They probably still have a lot of influence. I said Estonia is firmly Western aligned today. They said, If you say so. Just seems risky being that close to Russia all the time. I'm from Lithuania and was visiting Los Angeles. Someone asked about my background and home country. I said Lithuania. They said, Is that near Russia? I said yes, it borders Russia technically. They said, So you guys speak Russian mainly? I said we speak Lithuanian, our own language. They said, But doesn't everyone there know Russian? Because of the Soviet Union? I said older people might, but it's not common with youth. They said, You should keep teaching Russian though. It's useful. Americans learn Spanish. Same concept here. I explained the historical context is very different entirely. I'm from Bulgaria and was studying in Boston. A classmate said, Bulgaria? That's in Russia, right? I said no, Bulgaria is its own country. They said, But you use the Russian alphabet? I said we use Cyrillic, which originated in Bulgaria. They said, Same thing as Russian though. I explained Cyrillic was created in the Bulgarian Empire. They said. Interesting. I always thought Russia invented everything in that region. I said Bulgaria has very rich history dating back centuries ago. They said, yeah, but Russia is the important one everyone knows. You should market yourselves better honestly. I'm from Slovakia and was at a conference. An American said, Slovakia? Do you guys still wish you were part of Czechoslovakia? I said. The split was peaceful and mutual in 1993. They said, yeah, but wouldn't it be better together? I said both countries are doing well separately. They said, I just think small countries should merge. Like, why does Europe need so many countries? It's inefficient. I explained national identity and sovereignty matter. They said, Americans gave up state sovereignty for the Union. You guys should too. I didn't know how to respond to that. I'm from Luxembourg and was working in Manhattan. Someone said, Luxembourg? Is that even a real country? I said yes, it's been independent since 1839, they said. But isn't it just like one city? I said it's small but definitely a country. They said, you guys should just merge. France or Germany should just absorb you. It would make more sense. I explained Luxembourg has strong economy and identity. They said, yeah, but you're so tiny. Don't you feel weird being a country? I said no, size doesn't determine legitimacy. They said, in America you just be a county. That's wild to think about, really.